children of grade 8. Welcome you all for the today's English class. In today's session, we are going to see the first chapter from our supplementary reader, It So Happened. The title of the story is How the Camel Got His Hump, written by Rudyard Kipling. Children, before getting into the story, let's see about the author, Rudyard Kipling. The author of the story is Rudyard Kipling. He was born on December 30th, 1865 in Bombay, in India. He was educated in England, but he returned to India in the year 1882. In the year 1892, Kipling married Caroline Bowles Taylor and settled in Brattleboro, Vermont, where he wrote The Jungle Book in 1894 and Gunga Din, eventually being the highest paid writer in the world. Kipling was the recipient of the Nobel Prize for Literature in the year 1907 and he died in the year 1936. Let's see some other points about the author, Rudyard Kipling. He was awarded for the Nobel Prize in the year 1902. He was the first Englishman to win the prize. His Jungle Book stories were made into a hugely successful in Walt Disney films. His popular poems like If a Recluse. Recluse means a person who lives a solitary life and tends to avoid other people. That is mean by recluse. After the death of his son, and Kipling died in the year 9, as I told, 1936. The word recluse means a person who tend to avoid other people. Let's see the introductory part of the story. It was the beginning of the world. So the story was starting with this content, with the sentence, it was the beginning of the world. The animals were learning the work for the humans. Animals were learning to work for the humans. But there was a lazy animal that was none other than our camel, which refused to do any work. How the camel got his hump, from the book of Just So Stories by Rudyard Kipling, describes the humorous story of how the lazy camel gains his hump. This is a perfect story for teaching a lesson about working hard and helping others. So this is the moral of the story, that it is going to teach us about working hard and helping others. Let's see the characters of the story. Man, horse, dog, ox, and the lazy camel. Then the last at last, Jinn. Jinn is the in charge of all the desert. He is a supernatural character. He was a magical person who take charge of all the desert together. So this was the story about the lazy camel and its hump. So children, now I am going to visualize the story in sequence of pictures and I am going to explain the summary of the story. After that, we'll read on the textbook and I will explain it. Are we ready, children? Come, let's go. In the beginning, when the world was young, camels did not have humps like they do now. The animals had to work hard to help their friend man. So, in those days, in the olden days, animals used to help the humans. Camel didn't have hump like how they have now. Horse carried man on his back. Dog fetched wood for him. An ox ploughed fields for him. So, in the olden days, all the animals helped human beings. Lead man on his back, dog fetched wood for him, ox ploughed fields for him. That is for humans. However, camel was a lazy animal. It is not like the other animals. Camel was a lazy animal. He just stayed in the desert, slept in the sand, and ate leaves. He just stayed in the desert, slept in the sand, and ate leaves. When the other animals talked to him, when the other animals talked to him and urged him to come and work along with them, when the other animals called him, that is, to whom they called the camel. When the other animals went together and they called the camel and urged him to work along with them. But just opened one eyes and said, Hump. He just opened one of its eye and said, Hump. So that was the response from the camel side. So again, the next day, the horse went to the camel and asked, I think it's only right that you share our burden of work and come and help man too. The camel replied simply, Hump. The next day, dog and ox both went to the camel. The next day, dog and ox both went to the camel. But they got the same reply, Hump. Again, they got the same reply from the camel side, simply said, Hump. The next morning, man went to horse, dog, and ox. Next morning, man went to horse, dog, and ox and told them that they would have to work even harder, and told them they would have to work even harder because camel was lazy. So the man told all the animals to work hard because they need to work the work of the camel also. So the burden and the work got increased. That evening, all the animals were very tired and angry. That evening, all the animals were very tired and angry. So they visited Camel. So, after that instruction and order received by the man, they all very tired after working. They again moved on to the camel and complained. So they all went to camel and complained, but again he said only the single word, that is hump. So they all get fed up and they were really disturbed. Now again they received a same reply, simple word, that is hump. Simply the single word, that is hump. The next day, dog got a bright idea of calling on the magical jinn of the deserts. So the next day, all the animals together, they gathered for a meeting. There, dog got a bright idea of calling on the magical jinn of the deserts, who would do anything when they call his name. So the dog said, only jinn can solve this problem. So they got an idea from the dog and they thought to call the name of the supernatural power of the desert, that is the in charge of the desert, jinn. He is the only person to solve their problem. The jinn appeared after they called their name. The jinn appeared from a white cloud with a big bang. The jinn appeared from a white cloud with a big bang. He spelled the magical words. He spelled the magical words with the big bang. Immediately, a hump. The camel got a hump on its back. He asked, "Turn your head back." He asked the camel to turn his head back. Immediately, the camel turned to its back. He was shocked and surprised. "Why do I have an ugly hump on my back?" The camel asked this question to the jinn. "Why do I have an ugly hump on my back?" The jinn replied, "From now on, you have to work for man like other animals." The jinn replied that from now onwards, you have to work for man like other animals. There is food in the hump. He said, "There is food in the hump. So you do not have to stop working in order to eat leaves." So he replied, "So you do not have to stop working in order to eat leaves." Really, Camel was very upset, and the camel said, "That's so unfair." The camel said, "That's so unfair. Unfair means not good." The jinn replied, "It's quite fair." From next day onwards, camel had to carry man on its back, pull heavy trees. So from the next day, after the jinn cursed the camel started to work hard. From the next day onwards, camel had to carry man on its back. It started to pull heavy trees in the cart and plough fields. So the camel started to work harder and harder than other animals. So after the curse of the jinn, the camel started to work, and it was used by the man in all such purposes like carrying man from one place to another, and for pulling the heavy trees in a cart, and for ploughing fields. He worked very hard and had no time to eat leaves at all. So after the curse from the jinn, he never ate leaves because of the hump, because already the hump contains the food for the camel. So it never thought of the food, and he never thought of eating leaves thereafter. Today, camel still has the hump on its back. Today, still, camel has a hump on its back, and he still says hump. So, this was the story how the camel got his hump. Even today, camel still has a hump on its back, and he still says hump. But he has to work hard just like all other animals. So after that, it started to work hard as like all the other animals. So that's the end of the story, how the camel got his hump. I think, children, now you would have understood and you have enjoyed the story from the sequence of pictures. Now let's move on to the text. Supplementary reader. It so happened, chapter 1. The title of the story is How the Camel Got His Hump. Children, look at here. This is the first chapter of our supplementary reader from a supplementary book, It So Happened. The first story of our supplementary reader is How the Camel Got His Hump. So before getting into the story, let's see the summary here for the first part. So let's see the summary for the first part, children. So look at here. The first point, the world had just begun and the animals were working for humans. The world had just begun and the animals were working for humans. There was one lazy animal that did nothing and said nothing but humph. There was one lazy animal that did nothing and said nothing but humph. Even the clever jinn, it should not be pronounced as jinn, it should be pronounced as jinn only, children. So even the clever jinn was at his wits end. Wits end means puzzled or not knowing what to do. So even the clever jinn was at his wits end. Wits end means puzzled, confused, know what to do. So that's the summary for the first part of the story, how the camel got his hump children. Let's move on to the story now. In the beginning, when the world was new and the animals were just being to work for man, there was a camel. And he lived in the middle of the howling desert. Howling desert means it's a large sandy region, the place that is completely desolated and calm. So howling desert, that is known as howling desert children. Because he did not want to work. Who did not want to work? Yes, the camel, as he is a lazy animal, he did not want to work. And he lived in the middle of a howling desert. He ate sticks and thorns and prickles. Prickles means the small pointed, short, small, new shoots. That is known as prickles from the plant. So he ate sticks and thorns and prickles. Prickles means the small plants, tiny shoots from the plants. And when anybody spoke to him, he said simply hump. When anybody spoke to him, he simply said hump, just hump and no more. So he will not say anything, simply he will say hump and no other word we can get from him. Presently, the horse came to him on Monday morning with a saddle on his back. Saddle means it's a leather which we can sit by the human. Saddle means it's a leather seat which the human can sit over it. That is known as saddle, children, on his back, and said, "Camel, O camel, come out and trot like the rest of us." Trot means help and work like the rest of us. "Hump," said the camel. So immediately the camel said hump, and the horse went away and told the man. The horse went away and told this to the man. Presently the dog came to him with a stick. So the horse came with the saddle on its back, and the dog came with him with a stick on its mouth, and said, we have glossary, that is jinn. It should not be pronounced as dijin. It should be pronounced as jinn only, children, and variously spelled as jinni, genie, guinea, dijni, etc. So a spirit that has strange powers and can assume any form, human or animal. So here this word jinn should be pronounced as jinn only, not dijin. That means a spirit that has strange powers can assume any form. That means it can be in human or it can be in animal. So it's a supernatural spirit power. That is the jinn. So that's the first page of our supplementary, how the camel got his hump. Let's move on to the next page now. The dog came to the camel and said, "Camel, O camel, come and fetch and carry like the rest of us." The camel said, fetch means do something, carry something. "Hump," said the camel, and the dog went away and told the man. First the horse came, now the dog came. Both they received the same reply, the camel as hump. Presently the ox came to him with a yoke on his neck. What is meant by yoke? Yoke is a wooden crosspiece that will be wear on the neck of the animal to make the animal faster, to make the animal to do the work faster. So that is meant by yoke. Presently, ox came to him with a yoke on his neck and said, Camel, O camel, come and pluff like the rest of us. Hump, said the camel. The ox went away and told the man. At the end of the day, the man called the horse and the dog and the ox together. At the end of the day, the man called the horse and the dog and the ox together and said, Three, O three, I am very sorry for you. He said, Three, O three, I am very sorry for you. But that hump think in the desert can work. That hump means here the camel, it means that hump think in the desert can't work. So the camel in the desert can't work, or he would have been here by now, so I am going to leave him alone, or he would have been here by now. If he is here now, he won't work. The camel won't work. So I'm going to leave him alone. So he said, I'm going to leave him alone. That means I'm not going to give any work to him. And you must work double the time to make up for it. So who has to work double the time? This dog, ox, and the horse. So the man said, you must work double the time to make up for it. That made the three very angry. And they held the panchayat on the edge of the desert. Panchayat means they gathered for a meeting, that is panchayat, on the edge of the desert. So due to the order given by the man, they all three got angry and they discussed and called for a meeting in the edge of the desert. And the camel came chewing cud and laughed at them. The camel came for the meeting and he laughed at them. Then said hump and went away again. He just said hump and went away again. Presently there came along the jinn who was in charge of all the desert, rolling in a cloud of dust. So here at last, here comes the hero of the story, jinn, who is in charge of the desert. That is the supernatural power. Spirit came rolling in a cloud of dust. So that's the end of the second page, children. Let's move on to the third page now. So here, all the three along with jinn. So they gathered for a panchayat. Of all deserts, said the horse, is it right for anything to be ideal? So here they started their conversation. Jinn of all deserts, said the horse, is it right for anything to be ideal? Certainly not, said the jinn. So here, first who asked the horse, asked the jinn, the charge of the desert, that is that any right to be ideal? Is it right for anything to be ideal? Asked by the horse to the jinn. Jinn replied, certainly not, said the jinn. That means what the horse is asking, is there any law that in this desert that any one of the animal to be ideal? Ideal means not working, as like lazy. That is ideal. Immediately the jinn said, certainly not, said the jinn. Well, said the horse, that's the thing in the middle of your desert with a long neck and long legs. So he is just symbolically telling the camel. The horse complained about the camel and its laziness. They're a thing. They are not mentioning the name that camel, simply they are representing the appearance of the animal. They're a thing in the middle of your desert, a long neck and the long legs. He hasn't done a stroke of work since Monday morning. So he's telling that animal, he didn't do any small stroke of work, that means small little bit of work, since Monday morning. He won't trot, that means he doesn't wants to walk faster even, that is mean by trot. So whew, said the jinn, whistling. He just got shocked on hearing this. Then jinn was very shocked. That's my camel. So here finally they are telling the name of the animal. That's the camel. What does he say about it? The jinn asked this question to the horse, that what does he says about it? The horse replied, he says simply hump, and he won't pluff, said the ox. The ox said that he won't pluff. Very good, said the jinn. I'll hump him if you will kindly wait a minute. So here they have started to plan for it, to work out the final judgment. So what was the final judgment? So the jinn thought and said, very good, I will make a hump on it. I will just give a spell and I'll make a hump. Kindly give a minute. So kindly wait a minute. I will make a hump over it. So as he said hump, so the jinn wanted to make a hump over it. So that's the third page of our story. So here we have a glossary. I will hump him. That means I will deal with him approximately, or I will set him right. I will deal with him approximately. So please wait. I will deal with him, or I will set him right. So that's the meaning for the word. The last word, I will hump him. Are you clear, children? Yes. So shall we move on to the fourth page now? Yes. Children, that's all from the first part. Let's move on to the second part of the story. Look at the summary here. The jinn remonstrated with the camel, who said hump. Remonstrated means got angry. The camel's beautiful back suddenly grew a lump. Lump means it's a huge muzzle. That is known as lump. Large muzzle, that is known as lump, which was the camel's hump. The jinn assured the camel his hump would always be a help, not a hindrance. Hindrance means not a disturbance. So that's the summary of the second part, children. I'll repeat. The jinn remonstrated means got angry with the camel, who said hump. The camel's beautiful back suddenly grew with a lump. Grew with a lump. Lump means it's a large muscle, which was the camel's hump. The jinn assured. Assured means strongly accepted that the camel's hump would always be a help, not a hindrance. Hindrance means a disturbance. So that's the summary. Let's move on to the story now. The jinn rolled himself up in his dust chalk. He just moved in the clouds and he just rolled towards the camel in a dust chalk and took a walk across the desert. He just walked across the desert and he found the camel looking at his own reflection in the pool of water. In a pool of water. So there he found the camel looking his own reflection in a pool of water. Reflection means seeing his own face in the water. That is reflection. So once when you see in the water, you will see your own face, no? So that is known as reflection. My friend, said the jinn. The jinn called the camel, my friend. What's this? I hear of your doing no work. So the jinn is telling, what's this? I hear of your doing no work. The jinn asked to the camel. The jinn sat down with his chin in his hand. The jinn sat down with his chin. Below the lips we have chin in his hand, while the camel looked at his own reflection in the pool of water. You have given the 3 extra work ever since Monday morning. So he asked the camel that you have given 3 extra work since Monday morning. All on account of your idleness, said the jinn. So here the jinn is telling that all the 3 extra work, that means the dog, the ox and the horse, they all got the extra work because of your idleness, said the jinn. And he went on thinking with his chin in his hand. After telling this, still he just kept his hand over the chin and he is thinking what to do. The jinn was thinking what to do with the camel. Finally, at last. So that's the end of the 4th page, children. Let's move on to the 5th page of the story. Hump, said the camel. Even for jinn, he replied as Hump. I shouldn't say that again if I were you, said the jinn. If I were you, that means the jinn is telling that if I am like you, I wouldn't say like that. You might say it once too often. You might say it once too often. You are telling it again and again, the same word, hump. I want you to work. I want you to work. So what he is doing, and the camel said hump again. So even after he said that I want you to work, but he didn't accept it and he simply said hump. But no sooner had he said it than he saw his back. But no sooner had he said it than he saw his back that he was so proud of, puffing up into a great big hump. So after telling hump, he just bent his back and he started to drink the water. In the reflection, he could see the puffing up, that means the growing of the big hump. Do you see that? Said the jinn. That's your very own hump that you have brought up your very own self, but by not working. So the jinn replied and he said that, do you see that? That is your very own hump. So you asked for hump, so I gave a hump on your back. So that's your own hump because you were not working. As you are not working, so as you are telling the same word hump, so I have given the hump. Today is Thursday and you have done no work since Monday. The jinn that today is Thursday. From Monday you didn't do any work. When the work began, now you are going to work. When the work began, you are going to work. So that's the final judgment given by the jinn. How can I? Said the camel. Immediately the camel said, How can I? That means, how can I work? Said the camel to the jinn. With his hump on my back. With this hump on my back. It's heavy to me to work. How can I work with this hump? Asked the camel to the jinn. That has a purpose, said the jinn. The supernatural spirit told that it has a purpose. All because you missed those 3 days. So you missed Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So 3 days you missed. So that you will be able to work now for 3 days without eating. So 3 days he left by not working. So he has given this power, this hump, to store the food for 3 days without eating. You will able to work. You will be able to work now for 3 days without eating because you can live on your hump. You can live on your hump. And don't you ever say, I never did anything for you. Don't you ever say, I never did anything for you. Come out of the desert and go to the tree and behave. So 3 means here the dog, horse and the ox. So come out of the desert and go to the tree. That is the 3 friends, dog, horse and the ox, and be happy with them. That is behave. And the camel went away to join the tree. The camel finally went away from the desert to join the tree. Here 3 means directly the 3 friends, that is the dog, horse and the ox. And from that day to this, the camel always wears the hump. Call it hump now, not to hurt his feelings. We can call it as hump. The camel can be called as hump, but we should not hurt its feelings. But he was never yet caught up with the 3 days. But he never ever caught up with the 3 days. Compensate those 3 days in his life till now. So that is what given in the last paragraph. He ever never caught up with those 3 days that he missed and at the beginning of the world. That is Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. He missed at the beginning of the world. And he has never yet learned how to behave. Still now, he has never yet learned how to behave. So that's the end of the story. Moral of the story is we have to work hard. We have to save for our future. We have to help others. We have to be friendly with others. We have to behave ourselves properly. We have to behave properly with other people as well as with our parents. So this story is written by Rudyard Kipling, abridged. So that's the end of the story, how the camel got his hump, children. Hi children, I hope now you would have understood the story, the first chapter of from our supplementary reader, It So Happened. The title of the story is How the Camel Got His Hump. So children, please go through the video completely, learn the given question answers thoroughly and write it neatly in your classwork. Follow the instruction which we are giving every day in the WhatsApp and do accordingly.